Hello and welcome to the Reflecting Light Show. I am your host, April Rodgers, and I'm glad that you are here because we have a great show in store for you. We have Debbie Bright-Chunn and Nikki Murphy. They are the owners of Bright Star Ranch, which is a horse ranch. So welcome you guys. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, we have a lot to talk about. You guys are educators. You come from an education background, and then the Lord led you to start this ranch. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're also going to talk about what you guys are doing in the space of mental health and with special needs children, because it is a lot of good stuff that you guys are doing out in the community. So let's just go ahead and dive in, and let's talk about you and how you guys found each other to even produce this ranch.
Well, we've known each other for a long time. We used to go to church together.
Okay.
And I've always loved horses, but I never even knew that Nikki liked horses. And when we started building the ranch and the building started going up, she only lives just not even a mile from us. Yeah. And she called one day and just asked what's going on and what are you building? And when we told her, she said, oh, I want to know about that. Let me know when it's done. Well, it took about a year. And after that, she called back and I said, I haven't forgotten about you, but it's taken this long to get it built. And so she was all for it. And she can tell her story about her background, but that we didn't even know that. I didn't know she loved horses. I knew she was a teacher and had been a special ed teacher, but I didn't know that would ever be a connection.
That's beautiful. The Lord just brought y'all together so then that way y'all could work through this ministry as partners and as a team. So that's great.
I had always wanted to do therapeutic riding. I found out about that when I was in college at Tech, and but there was nowhere locally to do it. And so I just kind of tossed that dream to the side. And like she said, when I talked to her and found out that's what she was doing, I said, I want in. You know, I just do. And so, you know, it was obviously quite a while after I had graduated college that dream came back to me and, you know, was a mile from my house. So it was really, really neat to see that.
So your background is primarily with special needs children, and you were an educator for them for years. So let's talk a little bit about that and how the Lord led you to that, because that's a ministry in itself.
Yes. When I was in high school, I helped out with the Special Olympics. And there was a little guy there that, I mean, I give him all the credit because he is the reason that I started working with special needs children. His name was Michael, and he was quadriplegic, and he was blind. So, you know, it's easy for us to dismiss a lot of times. You know, he can't walk, he can't talk, he can't see. Like, you know, what can we do for him? Like, how can we interact? It's uncomfortable for us. You know, we don't know because that's not our norm. And I had another child that I was assigned to that we were running the races, we were doing all these things. But every time I passed by him, you know, I would say, hey, Michael, are you having fun today? And he would just grin the most beautiful smile I'd ever seen. And it just really struck me that, you know, all it took was me acknowledging him, me seeing him. And I get emotional when I think about it. But he, you know, it just took something that simple for somebody just to acknowledge him. And that just impacted me so greatly that I just always wanted to be the person that let those kids know that they were important, that they were seen, and that they mattered.
Yeah, that's really beautiful story. I'm glad that you shared that. So Debbie, let's talk about your background in education and how you came to a point where you wanted to start the ranch.
Well, I was serving as a medical records director at a hospital and been there for several years. And I had my master's in health informatics and had gone through all the kinds of things to take anatomy and physiology and all the kind of medical side of things. And I found out about therapeutic riding from visiting a lady who had horses who had been used as therapy horses. And the whole meeting with her came about in a really special way, but she began to tell us what she had seen happen with children with special needs and horses. And I've had horses all my life, loved them, but I'd never heard of therapeutic riding, never heard about the horses being used. And I said, well, tell me how I find out about this. I need to know about this. So she said, well, there's a conference coming up in the fall, and this was in the summer. And she said, you really need to go and see it for yourself and see if that's what you want to do. And myself, my husband, and another couple went with us. And when what we saw, we were hooked. We said, we have to do this. And so I said, what do I have to do to be certified? What do I have to do this? I've got the horses, I've got the place. Just let me know. And so from there, we found out what we had to do. It was a long process, hard.
Yeah.
It was harder than the master's degree. It was harder than other things. That it's not just a pony ride.
Yeah.
It is really so much safety that has to be learned to put a child with special needs on a big animal.
Sure.
That, there's a big risk there, so you have to be like 100% safe all the time.
Yeah.
And that's where it came from. I just was hooked and knew I had to do it. So for the last 7 years of my working in the hospital, I was taking every moment I could to go get training, go get volunteer hours, go do things that we had to do. It was a long process and it was hard, but it's so worth it.
So how long has the ranch been open now?
We have been officially open for 4 years,
Okay.
just this month.
Yeah.
We had the horses before, but we were not actively doing the ranch until the fall of 18. We barely had done it a little over a year when COVID happened and we had to stop.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like we've been in a start over phase since 2021.
Yeah.
But it's been great.
Okay, so we were talking a little bit about how the primary objective of the ranch was to cater to the special needs children, but then it started to shift where mental health became a big part of what you guys do. So talk a little bit about how that became part of the ranch.
Well, with 2020, we saw what was happening to people socially, and it was affecting everybody. It wasn't just the adults that were sent home to work and couldn't go back out in the community. It was the children, it was the teenagers, the things they couldn't do anymore. They couldn't go out and be social. And it really was taking a toll on them. We went to some program seminars and things about the mental health with the horses, and we thought, well, we probably ought to try that. And in talking about doing that, we came upon several programs, and I'll get Nikki to tell how we came about the program that we're using now.
So we had some books and things from different programs that, everything had a little bit of what we thought our area needed, and so we kind of devised our own version of it. But I reached out to a counselor friend of mine and someone who works in the foster care system and just kind of picked their brains a little bit. And they were both so excited about the need for it in our area for the kids that they worked with. And so they jumped on board and we got busy planning. And I mean, in 6 weeks, we went from an idea to a full curriculum and opening that up to people for signups. And we have seen that blossom more than the therapeutic riding at this point. Now, I mean, it may fluctuate back and forth depending on the need at the time, but we have had a huge interest in that because, like I said, it can cover depression, anxiety, PTSD, people who suffer with long-term illness. That causes depression a lot of times. It is a hard road. There's just so many areas that it can cover, and the horses can teach trust, communication, healthy relationships, boundaries. There's just a lot of things that you can cover. And it's a fun way of doing it because it doesn't seem like work.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's dive deeper into that. And let's do a hypothetical scenario. And then you have somebody who comes in and they are battling with depression. Maybe it's a young girl and she is going through these different things about who am I, what is my purpose in the world? How does her getting on a horse and riding the horse help her overcome that depression?
The funny thing is that program is actually a groundwork program.
Okay.
A lot of people get excited thinking the first thing we need to do is jump on the back of a horse. And for our therapeutic riders, that is a big benefit. But for the mental health, you get so much more face-to-face, side-by-side with a horse than you do on the back. Because you are on the back of the horse, you are telling them what to do, but you're really not getting that interaction that a horse offers. when you get to look in the eyes of a horse and they are looking through, like it seems like they are looking into your soul and things, you just get a connection from them that's very different than you do on the back of a horse. They've done studies where a horse's heartbeat after being next to them for a few minutes will be in sync. It will sync up with the person's heartbeat.
They are breathing.
Yeah, the breathing and everything. They are mirror animals. They do it with their feelings. So if you come in very anxious, they're probably going to be anxious too. And so it's fun to use those situations to show, hey, this is what the horse is picking up on. Let's talk about maybe why. We have all kinds of activities that do have the girls. Let's say this girl was there, and we would reflect on some self-worth. Let's talk about how do we rate ourselves. If we were to rate ourselves, what do we like about ourselves physically on a scale of 1 to 10? How could we raise that 1 point? What's something we could do? And we want to point out to them the positive things because sometimes it takes just being a constant positive voice for somebody. And with that program, it's also a mentorship program. So they're with the same mentor every week. They get to build that relationship.
Yes.
And that's important too. That's a huge, important part of it.
And so then that mentor is probably speaking life into the
They
girl.
also have something that kind of feels like their own. They get their own grooming bags, their own grooming tools. They have opportunities to win tassels for each area, like if it's self-worth or trust or confidence or whatever, and they know they're working on that. Those tassels go on a key ring on their grooming bag, and that is for them to keep, as well as a personalized water bottle, from us to know that they are working towards something, and they can see from that. But the tassels are pretty inconspicuous to anybody else. It doesn't call out too much attention. It just looks like a pretty keychain. And if you want to tell anybody what it means, it's fine. If you don't, it's all your business to keep. Wonderful thing about this program, I love the name. Nikki came up with a lot of ideas, and she kept going down the list from A to Z, like what should it be named? And she got to the F's, and it was freedom to flourish, and I always stop because one of our horses' name is Freedom, and the other one is just the idea of these kids flourishing and through the environment they've just been in. I love the name, and I think that's so awesome. It's also been kind of confirmed sometimes in even people's prayers or a message at the church that we would hear about flourishing, and I just think it's kind of been confirmed that that's what we are there to do, is to help these kids flourish.
Absolutely. And taking care of a horse is hard work. It's not really easy. So it teaches them that skill as well as they get to know how to groom a horse and what to do. So.
Yes.
It's a big responsibility. And a lot of them will ask their parents for a horse for Christmas, and they'll say, no. And I said, these are yours. As long as you come here, these are yours to call your own and be your friend.
Yeah.
It's just amazing what the horses can do for them and the feelings that they get from it. And sometimes someone will come in for the very first time, they gravitate to one horse for some reason, and that's theirs. And they have that bond immediately, and we try to keep it like that the whole time they're there.
And so how long does the program usually last?
It's set up to be a 10-week program, once a week for an hour with their mentors. They can come back for a second session if they want to, or either it could be rotated out with someone new. But it typically is a 10-week program. You don't get through everything, but when we take the intake form on them, we try to set their plan accordingly, maybe 2 or 3 things that they really need.
And so you guys are a nonprofit, and all of this is free of charge, or how does it work?
We wish. That's the ultimate goal. That is the ultimate goal. Right now, we are still having, because we're so new, we are still needing corporate sponsors and funding and stuff like that to even cover just operating cost. Our ultimate goal, though, is to one day have enough to put back so that we don't have to charge anybody anything. Unfortunately, we're not there yet. But One day.
Well, that will be the prayer that
we're
we
going to
can
get there.
get some more of those corporate sponsors just to supplement until you're there.
Absolutely.
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the spiritual aspects of horse riding.
Okay.
We would like to thank today's sponsor of the Reflecting Light Show, Lafitte's Gourmet Cajun Pickles and Jalapenos. If you've been searching for the best Cajun pickles, you've found them. Spicy, sweet, and oh so crunchy, Lafitte's Gourmet Cajun Pickles and Jalapenos will leave your mouth begging for more. Visit Lafitte's.com to buy some of the world's best pickles today. Hello and welcome back to the Reflecting Light Show. We are here with Debbie and Nikki of Bright Star Ranch, and we are talking about the ministry that they provide. You guys allow these special needs kids to ride the horses, and then you have that mental health program where you said that really a lot of the work is done side by side with the horse. And so now let's shift a little bit and let's talk about what are some of the things that brings light into the world because of what you guys are doing, because of the ministry that you're providing. How is this providing hope and light into this generation?
Well, I think for one, they find a friend in the horse. The horse can't talk back. It can't be judgmental.
That's good.
They just find a bond there that they know that they can relate to. I think some of them who respond to touch more just love to love on the horse, and the horse does the same. I mean, it's just having some community with somebody that's not going to be judgmental to them is what we see, and they love them. Every now and then we'll get a child that's not as crazy about being with a horse, but it's the feelings that they get of being accepted and loved and knowing how to care for something that's a lot bigger than them. And also being able to, when they do ride, have some sense of control over their life that they did not have before. We have to remind them a lot of times, look, you weigh maybe 80, 90 pounds, but you are maneuvering almost a 2,000-pound animal.
Wow.
And you have the strength to do that and guide yourself in the right path on that horse. So you have the strength in you to live a spiritual life and to conquer that. That's just kind of a visualization that they can see of what they will be able to do.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a great illustration of what we can do in our spiritual walk. And if we do allow the Lord to lead and to guide us, then we can have that trust and that element of working together and not working apart from each other.
Yeah. And as Christians, you know, we it is our main purpose that no matter who walks onto our property, that they immediately feel welcomed and they immediately feel loved and a part of the family. They are one of us. You know, if they come one time or they come 1,000 times, they are a part of our family. And I think that we do a good job of doing that. And because of that, we build relationships with our clients that allow us to eventually open those doors and be able to share our love of Christ.
That's good.
You know, obviously you can't do that with somebody you meet for the first time every time. Sometimes you can, but not every time. Sometimes that relationship has to be built, but we usually get that opportunity at some point to, you know, it's fun to have a horse on a lead and walk around and talk about Christ, talk about how good He is and how wonderfully they are made, no matter what they've been through, no matter what they are built like, you know, all the things that they are down on themselves for, He made them for a purpose. And we get to relay that to them. And that's always a good day.
And when they're able to do a task that they haven't been able to do before, like some of them with the really special needs that they've never been given the opportunity to rein the horse themselves, and then they can do that. We have someone right now that has started doing that, and it's just amazing to see. And the thing that's the best reward of all is seeing what happens with the parents when they see it happen. So it's something that they've never been able to do before. Maybe they couldn't participate in a sport at school or some kind of athletic event, but they can do this.
Yeah. And it gives you that sense of satisfaction and purpose. We've said purpose a lot in this conversation, and that's a really big deal. You know, if we do have that purpose-driven life and we're allowing our lives to be led and live with purpose, then it changes everything for us. And I think that that's a gift that you guys are giving not only the kids, but also, like you said, the parents to see that.
Yeah, they go through an awful lot 24/7. And we say we do this as much for them as we do the kids because we know they need a break. They need to see some success with their children.
Yes. I think about just the creation of a horse and God's creation to build, something so beautiful for our enjoyment, but also it has been really something that you guys have tapped into that can help you emotionally and physically and mentally just start to flourish. And I love that it is that freedom to flourish because you really are providing that. So let's talk a little bit about the actual horse and how you were talking about how we mirror that horse. And let's just dive a little bit more into that about how that helps us bring out the best.
Well, a lot of times, it's easy for us to go through our day-to-day and sometimes not even stop to self-check what we are reflecting, But when we're standing in front of a mirror, it's easy to see. So when that horse starts acting out some of the ways that we don't even realize that we're feeling, and you have someone there to gently point that out that, excuse me, that, the horse is a little anxious right now. Is there possibly something that you're anxious about? It's just a neat way of doing a self-check sometimes because we get so busy and we're busy looking at everybody else and what's going on with them, or even maybe playing the blame game sometimes. But a lot of things that start with us. And like I tell a lot of our clients, we are the only thing that we have control over. We can't control what other people do, say, or how they react, but we can only control us. And so that's just a great place to start. And the horses help us do that.
Yeah.
Also, on a physical level with the therapeutic riding, the horse's movement mimics a human's movement.
Okay.
Their hips, their movement, if a child cannot walk, cannot use their hip joints, their legs, to be put on a horse, it actually moves them as if they were walking. So they feel like for the first time in their life, they are able to walk. They're just doing it on a horse. And that helps so much physically. We've seen people that have had really problems, maybe couldn't even walk at all, and be able to stretch their legs longer after being on a horse. Their back straighten up. When they didn't have core strength, it helped them. So it's the movement that takes place on it too. That's God made them to help us do that.
That's so good.
Yeah.
That's really good. And whenever y'all were talking and you were using the word reflect, that's what this is, the reflecting light show, and that we are to reflect the light of Christ that is inside of us. And so if we want to mirror who Christ is, then we have to know him, and we have to know his word, and we have to know what he says about us. And if whatever he says about me, I have to accept that as my truth and reject those lies that the enemy is giving at me. And I think about that from y'all's standpoint too. If the horse is reflecting what the rider is doing, then they have to know each other. There has to be that element of trust that comes in to the equation. And trust is a big deal. It's a big deal to God.
Yeah. It's a really big deal, especially we see it just with the horses trusting us to take care of them and to teach them these things. Horses are big scaredy cats. We have to teach them to not be afraid of anything we put in front of them. And so we do a lot of desensitization things with props and noises and everything. And they know that if we do that, we're not going to hurt them because they've already trusted us. And so sometimes when you need to shoo them away, they won't go because it's like, well, what are you trying to show me now? But they do have a trust with us that I wouldn't take for anything in the world because they know we're not going to hurt them. And we know that they're helping us and we're helping them and they're helping others. So that's an awesome thing.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing, the relationships all the way around for us as well. I mean, we get taught all the time. Another thing besides the physical, we've had a lot of nonverbal children come. We have actually had the distinct pleasure and just most awesome experience in hearing them speak their first word on a horse. Because after hearing us repeat the commands over and over, and we always say, tell them certain things, and finally one day when they say it, it takes your breath away, and it's like the most exciting thing in the world that they have talked, because they were stimulated enough by the movement of the horse, by the relaxation that they had, whatever else it takes to make you speak, it happens. So we've seen that, and it's an amazing experience.
That's what I was going to say, truly amazing. And that's a gift to you guys for the obedience of putting this whole ministry together, which I think is just absolutely beautiful. Okay, well, I can hardly believe it, but our time is starting to wrap up. So I'm going to ask you guys one more question. I want you both to answer it. Okay. What is one thing that is lightening your load, Nikki?
To be honest, sometimes we stay so busy that just trying to find a few moments of quiet, is life-saving for me. That's something that just means so much to me right now, because I am so busy running from one thing to the next.
Sure.
It's just reminding myself to take those moments, even if it's just a few minutes, to breathe, to sit. Worship music is, whether it's in the car. Last night I actually had my laptop in the bed with me, and I was working, but I had that worship music playing in the background, and I found myself just stopping and listening, closing my eyes, and that honestly probably lightens my load more than anything else.
I love that. Worship plays a big part of my life too.
Yeah. Same for me. We have stayed so busy trying to promote everything and get things going that it's really hard to stop and take time to be still without just falling dead asleep, But that is something that we strive to do more of, and take time for ourselves, and this may sound terrible, away from the ranch, because the burden is heavy there.
Sure.
And there is time that we need to rejuvenate ourselves away from the worries of what all the families have. And that, when you have a soft heart, sometimes you have to guard that even more in order for you to keep on doing what you're doing. And that's where I find that I have to really work hard at. And not let it all be a burden to me, to let me still be positive in what we're doing. Just get some rest, and that's hard to do sometimes.
Rest is elusive. Yes, it definitely is. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on the show, for sharing with us your expertise. I think it's really going to bless a lot of people. I'm taking home a lot of the different things that you guys have taught us: purpose, trust, freedom to flourish. These are all things that we can use in our everyday lives, whether we are riding horses or not.
Absolutely.
So thank you guys. You are lights in my life.
Well,
thank you for having us.
This is great.
Thank you for tuning in to the Reflecting Light Show. We pray you got some hope and some light out of today's episode. And if you did, please subscribe to the show and also share with a friend who may need the light of Jesus Christ in his or her life. If you haven't gotten your copy of Made to Shine, you can do so by going to aprilrodgers.com. Go out and have a great week and be the light.